I'm going to mention right up front, this is going to be a bit of a rant. So today is the first day of November, and if you're watching this, you're probably a writer yourself, so you know this month of November is NaNoWRIMO. It's day one of National Novel Writing Month. The idea being that someone would, over the course of the next 30 days, write 50,000 words of their novel, which is obviously a very, kind of a lower word count novel, great, obviously for first-time publication, and obviously very, very, very good if you can get a novel to that point. I think for most people, it ends up being just kind of a springboard to at least get something done in their writing. So 50,000 words probably ends up being maybe like half of their novel, maybe like 2/3 or something like that. And then there are those that obviously go beyond it, that want to do beyond the 50,000 words, right? I remember back when I had first attempted to do this, I don't know, years ago, I think people were shooting for like, half a million or like 250,000 words. They were going for like 250,000 words or something like that, I think, with some of the larger numbers I'd seen on people attempting to sort of crank out words for this month. But for me, I know I'm happy that people get excited about writing this month. I am very happy about that, truly, like deep down. I am, if nothing else, I'm glad that, brings people that are interested in writing, gets them, interested in at least doing it. But I've got to be completely honest here. I absolutely hate NaNoWRIMO. Yeah, I absolutely hate it. I don't wish it would go away at all. I don't necessarily think that, but I do tend to think that those that do NaNoWRIMO are not approaching writing in the proper way. If you follow this channel for any length of time, I tend to advocate for very, very concise and very well written first drafts, right? I've talked about this a ton in like the first 6 months of this channel. How like your first draft is basically going to be what sets up success for later drafts, and that you cannot do a fast draft, right? If you're doing NaNoWRIMO and you're writing out 50,000 words, well, quite frankly, in a month, that draft is going to be terrible. Like, you're not writing 50,000 quality words in a single month. I'm just telling you, it's not going to happen. Your draft you're going to write is going to be terrible. And that's kind of the point, though, right? Like, the point in NaNoWRIMO is that you're supposed to write a terrible draft. The idea being that you can go back and you can revise it and all this. Again, the problem is to use the expression, you cannot polish a turd, right? What you write, all the crap, it's going to inform the rest of your story. Even if you're someone that says, well, I'll just throw out most of what I wrote and just keep a couple of good parts, and at least I have an idea of how the story works. Yes, but even then, you've already shaped your story. By writing your first draft, you've already shaped how the story is going to go in your mind. You've shaped how it's going to be told. Writing a story, it's not like film. I realize people tend to get in the mentality of like filmic, where they think that stories are told basically like you imagine a story in your head told in the form of like how you would see it on a screen, right? Like a movie or something acted out. Books are not written that way. Books are language. It is told in a certain way. It's told from a certain perspective. There are certain word choices that convey certain emotions. So if you are writing out your first draft, even if you plan to throw out most of it, right, you've already informed in your head how the story is going to be. If I told you to write a story about a guy losing his job, right, and that's all I gave you, you could write that story a million different ways, right? Even if I went into more detail, even if I was like, all right, the guy works at the post office and gets fired for delivering mail to somebody, or gets fired. I'll make it easy. If the person gets fired for going through someone's mail, right? There's a neighbor who they suspect is having an affair with their wife, and they read, and this is maybe back like 50, 60 years ago when people were sending letters, right? The guy decides to go through the neighbor's mail to see maybe his wife, because there's an envelope addressed from his wife to this person, to see maybe if it's a love letter or something like that. And the guy goes through and he opens the mail and gets caught going through someone's mail and gets fired, right? If I give you just that plot, there's a million different ways you can write out how it happens, how the guy, gets fired, how he's told he's fired, how it happens, how he leaves his job, his reactions, all that. A million different ways you can do it. And the moment you put down a single word, you've already mapped out how it's going to happen. The single word on the page, a single sentence on the page, a single paragraph, a single page of writing is going to affect the shape of the rest of your story. That is very, very important. You cannot just throw that out there. It cannot be something that you just put down for the sake of just putting something down, right? You cannot trust something that important to your story to simply, just the first random thought that comes into your head. It can't be done. The way these stories need to be written is from the very first word, they need to be crafted well. And fast drafting a story is not going to get that for you. Going through and writing a bunch of words just to get an idea in your head is not going to get that done. The moment you put a single word down, you have laid out the foundation of the story. That opening sentence is going to inform the rest of that paragraph. I use the analogy all the time of tile. When you're laying down tile in your house, the first one has to be centered perfectly. It has to be absolutely perfect. If it is, what you do is you can just keep going through with every preceding tile and it goes fine. But that first one needs to be perfect. This first draft, in essence, needs to be close to perfect. And it's not saying there aren't going to be changes and fixes. You've seen my drafts here. I'm on my sixth draft or something like that now. I've gone through multiple drafts. I go through tons and tons of drafts. But the story in the shape of it is informed in the way that sounds good and reads good and is told in a very effective way. If I had on the very first day, decided to write my first chapter, fast draft it, just my first chapter, the rest of my story would be different. The rest of my entire story would look different. The shape and the way it's told would be completely different than what it is now. It simply would be. And most likely it would be much worse. So I don't think people can just go through and do fast drafts. I don't think you can just get all the crap out, get all that bad writing down the page and then revise forever. It does not work that way. I'm sorry. I've tried it before. I've seen it before. I can tell you, at least from my experience, it does not work. Again, I'm sure there are plenty of authors that will swear by this. There are plenty of people who find this is helpful, and there are those that don't care, right? Like, to be frank, I am sort of preaching to those that are trying to really write really, really, really strong prose here. I am not necessarily preaching to the person that just wants to write out a fun story. I'm not talking to the person that wants to self-publish, some book, and hey, who cares how the writing is as long as it's got kind of a cool plot. I don't really care too much about the prose. I'm not talking to the person that is trying to, just write out a very fun adventure story, in a genre that maybe is less critical of prose than say lit fic. To be honest, I get that. There are those that don't care. There are those that simply do not care, that are okay writing kind of like this mediocre prose, but hey, as long as it's a fun, exciting story, they're happy with it. And there are agents, there are publishers as well that might agree. It certainly will. But this message is more for those that are trying to be very, very serious and trying to sort of write at a higher level, that want to improve their craft. And so that is you. I would steer you away from it. I'm very happy that this month is exciting for you. I'm very happy that you enjoy it. But NaNoWRIMO it's almost everything bad about writing, or almost everything that I hate about writing, with the exception of it gets people motivated to write, right? The one positive is that it gets you to sit down and write every single day. Obviously, by the title of this channel, I love that. I love people that commit to the habit of doing this every single day. And if that's what really motivates you, is this month to do it, that's awesome. What I would try to do instead then is not focus so much on word count, but just see if you can do it every day. See if you could just end up writing every single day instead. See how that works out for you. See if that actually produces a good result, a nice tangible result. You might find that it does. Because if you can keep the habit after the 30 days, if you can do 30 days of writing and you can keep that chain going into December, into the next year, well, long term, you're going to be a better writer. Long term, you're going to improve. So if this month is sort of like a springboard for you, that's awesome. But if you're trying to hit the 50,000 words and trying to win that award, I'm going to be honest, I just don't see... I don't see it going well. I don't see what you write ever, turning into something really strong. Or if it does, it's probably not going to be as strong as you could make it. Just my thoughts on that. I'm sure there are some exceptions to the rule. Some writers that maybe put out some really good work from this, but again, they're exceptions, not the actual rule itself. If you want to be a stronger writer, if you want to have stronger prose, don't focus on cramming a high word count in a short amount of time. Focus on spending a lot of time trying to get out a small word count. All right. And that's going to be it, though, for this video today. If you enjoyed this rant, come back, continue to come back and watch these videos. I will be back tomorrow.